Hello, everybody, and welcome into today's webinar. We're going to get this started here with just getting a little bit of chat engagement. If you've joined one of at least a webinar on the Hudu side before, we always like to make these as engaging as possible. So if everybody wants to go ahead and put in the chat where you're calling in from, that's an easy way to get started. It's always fun to see who, is the farthest out. Where's what time zone are people calling in from? Always interesting to see here. And we just love to have a little bit of chat engagement here. And then as our attendee list continues to fill up here, as it will for the next few minutes, we'll go ahead and do some introductions and then we'll hop right into the content today. Got St. Pete, Florida. There we go. I am from Denver, Colorado. Jamie, Andrew, where are you guys located?
We're in Boise, Idaho.
Boise, Idaho. We got a Chicago there. There we go. Welcome in, Madeline. Thanks so much for joining today. So it does look like our numbers have started to fill out. Obviously, we'll have some people joining in throughout, but with that, obviously, feel free to engage in chat. We got Utah. Welcome in, Brooks. Um, but we'll continue to engage in chat and Q&A throughout the webinar. So obviously, as questions come up, feel free to put them in the Q&A. Feel free to engage with other attendees in the chat. But from an introduction standpoint, my name's Daniel. I am an account executive here with Hudu, and I focus a lot on these webinars as well, whether they're internal webinars, partner webinars. Um, you've probably seen my face before if you've seen another Hudu webinar. So that's a little background about me, again, from Denver, Colorado. Jamie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jamie Cam, the co-founder and CEO of HelpGhost. If you haven't seen my face before, that's totally understandable. So that's good to be with you, Daniel, and the team over at Hudu.
And I'm Andrew, CTO at HelpGhost. Have a software engineering background. Live about an hour from Jamie in the Boise area. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, well, thanks for hopping on, and it was great scheduling this webinar with you. So, for those of you joining, this webinar is going to be focused on proactive IT and how you, as an MSP, can leverage certain items that we'll be talking about today, like documentation and AI, to be more proactive as an MSP. We want this to be very conversational, and we ideally would like to include our attendee list in that as well. So, if you have questions throughout, if you want us to discuss a certain topic, then please feel free to engage in the chat, in the Q&A. Obviously, myself being a pseudo expert on documentation, and Jamie and Andrew obviously joining in from HelpGhost. Um, with the AI side of things, any and all questions are welcome today, and we are happy to make this as engaging as possible. Um, so to get us started here, let's talk a little bit about that word, proactive, and how, Jamie, I know that we've talked a lot before this, and how really MSPs right now should have a focus on trying to become more proactive rather than being reactive. If you want to talk a little bit about what that means and what you've seen in that MSP space, I think that's a good place for us to start today.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I'll start this because it's one of the things that we didn't come to that conclusion ourselves. It wasn't something that we said, oh, like it'd be really cool if we could make a product that would automate the reactive and that way MSPs could be more proactive. It was as we were building HelpGhost and talking to more and more MSPs in the early days, giving the product away for free and trying to figure out what really mattered to MSPs, it kept coming up again and again. And as we matured as a company and as a product and all of our demos, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, I'd say the majority of them, it came up in some way, shape, or form of trying to figure out how we could get away from the react, not completely away from the reactive because the reactive is still needed. It's impossible to get completely away from the reactive, but to start putting more of the reactive in the automation bucket and picking up the proactive, right? And focusing on strategic projects and things that aren't included in SLAs and the like, right? And the one thing that I learned in talking to MSP owners and operators and technicians and service desk managers and ops directors was proactive doesn't mean one thing. It's whatever moves or progresses your business along. Whether that's security audits, like I said, strategic projects. I mean, there's any number of things that fall into that proactive bucket, and only you can determine what that is. But up until this point, and talking to one of our bigger MSPs, one of our, our biggest believers from the very beginning in Help Ghost's journey was, people have been talking about proactive for a very long time. And it just seems now with AI and automation, there's a door that has been opened. You get to determine what that proactive is, but now that you have a chance to actually act on that decision.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I do like how you're talking about referencing, conversations from that you've had with MSPs, because that's really where, taking away tools like Hudu and HelpGhost, but that's what we strive to do, right? Is help MSPs become more efficient in their business and increase their productivity. And a big way to do that is that proactive way of thinking. And I think that's where what I found being in my role, documentation plays a big piece in, of course. Having a documentation platform like Hudu or really any documentation in general, because we always say here is any documentation is better than no documentation, really can shift an MSP from being reactive, fixing issues as they break, that break fix model, to proactive, which is more along the lines of preventing issues before they happen and responding faster to those issues if they ever could have a chance to come up. Um, and I think, even you've mentioned through our conversations how you've seen your customers and other MSPs in the space really leverage on their documentation to do so. And so that's kind of where I wanted to get the conversation started off here is if you've seen any specific ways where an MSP having certain documentation within their environment really helps them to shift to proactive. And obviously, I can speak on this a little bit as well, but kind of wanted to start with some of your thoughts there.
Yeah, well, I'll lead with this. I mean, you guys are the documentation experts, right? But AI is a multiplier and not a miracle, right? Everyone, I think a lot of the conversations that are happening in this space are around AI being and automation being this magical bullet that's going to fix all these problems. What we find is that, if you're really sound in your operations, your process, your documentation, AI and automation is going to amplify that. If you're not, if you're messy with those things, you're just going to get messier faster, which that is not a winning formula by any means. And so, I mean, right off the bat from our side, we see that the best MSPs that get the most out of AI and automation are those operationally sound or are trying to get there. They're on their journey there. They want that to be one of the forefronts of their business is getting more out of their operations, getting more out of their documentation before they plug in AI and automation. And I say AI and automation separately because a lot of people convolute those two. They use those as synonyms and they're not. They mean very different things. They fit together, but they're not the same thing. I think you see a lot of people plugging in AI and automation without actually understanding what they want the AI to do, what they want the outcome to be, what they want to automate with the automations and the workflows. And then you just have these systems that are perpetuating problems and not actually fixing them, right? Andrew, I don't know if you actually have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I thought that comes to mind is I reminded of a professor in college who really drilled into us the idea that there's no such thing as a silver bullet. And this is when we're talking about like software processes, because in any industry, if there's a solution that seems great, everyone wants to treat it like a silver bullet, meaning it solves every problem. AI is definitely that silver bullet in our industry, in any industry right now. I saw a video where someone was at CES, and every product in every booth had AI slapped on the name somewhere, and so everybody's slapping it on. Everybody thinks it's a silver bullet, and it's a super powerful tool and super versatile. Don't get me wrong, but the real power is not applying it to every solution, but applying it to the right solutions.
Yeah, yeah, I really like that point, and that's kind of tying in the documentation component of all of that, as you mentioned, is when you're using AI or automation, really either of those things in general, how is it detecting that information? Is that information even good information? And so that is really where you need to leverage a documentation platform, or at least having standardized documentation like a centralized, up-to-date knowledge base, where you have that material, that information that a technician can go into and find it. And then, as you mentioned, AI is not solving the issue of, hey, how do I do this? AI is solving the problem, or escalating that of, okay, we already know how to do this, now let's get it to you quicker. And that's the same thing with processes, with standardized operating procedures. You need that documentation so that way any of your techs, you don't just have one person in your company that has this knowledge of, okay, I need to go solve this problem, here's how I do it. You have that documented so you can hire a new tech tomorrow and they can go in and know exactly how your internal company completes a specific process or SOP within inside of your company. And that's really where the documentation component comes in, is having that centralized area, that centralized platform in which all of that is stored. Um, Again, I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from talking to so many MSPs on that side of things is that knowledge is great to have as an individual. Knowledge is better when it's shared. And so if, the three of us are a part of a company, and Jamie, you know how to do a specific SOP that Andrew and I have no idea what to do, and you happen to be on vacation, or you happen to be, working in the field a certain day, and Andrew and I have to go get something done. If that's not documented and we don't know how to do that, then what are we going to do? And so that's really where documentation kind of comes into play with being proactive, right? It's the ability for anybody in your MSP, anybody in your organization to have the knowledge they need to complete any task that they would need to on any given day.
Yeah, I think too, just a real quick thought is that that problem is also amplified by technician turnover in MSPs, right? So there was a study done. I found this on, it's called GetNux is the site, but I can share that as well. But they did a study or survey, and it said 16% turnover is the average for MSP technicians right now. And what we saw very early on in our company was, it's the tribal knowledge problem, meaning that you have these technicians that are incredibly smart. They've been at the job for a very long time. They know the resolutions at the back of their hands. And you have this reactive firefighting problem where it's solve ticket, next thing, solve ticket, next thing, right? And there's no time to document. We saw that very early on. Even the best, documenting MSPs, things would always fall through the cracks because of the fact that, you're always in that reactive, what's the next thing I got to handle? Let's be honest, every reactive ticket is a context switch. It is an interruption. That's the reality of the life that these MSPs live, right? And to go back to that, if you're losing technicians, or they are switching careers, or going from L2 to L3 somewhere else, or get a better opportunity, whatever it may be, well, you don't know that tribal knowledge is leaving the door with them until they're already gone. Until
Yeah.
you turn around and say, "Hey, Dave, what was the? Oh, well, Dave's not here anymore. Did he document it? Well, it may be in a Teams log. It may be in an old email. Maybe it's, in Hudu from, 2021. We got to go find that. We don't know, right? And that compounds significantly over time. And so there's a lot of factors that problem alone is an issue. And then other factors that are compounding on top of that we've seen. And obviously we're trying to solve for. And so, so is Hudu. But like you said, any documentation is better than no documentation, right? And using AI and automation on top of that documentation, whether it's us or somebody else, right? You've got to have the correct processes in place to do that, to get the most out of it.
Right. And so I guess that would lead me into another question of, especially in today's day and age, and you actually alluded to this earlier, a lot of MSPs, at this point have a lot of tools in their tech stack. And so obviously there is a really strong connection between a documentation and a AI tool because as we've mentioned, AI is directly associated off of the documentation that you have for solving specific problems. And AI, I know that you'll mention this, but AI getting smarter, not just faster. And so, in your opinion, as a HelpGhost co-founder and everything like that, why do you think the connection between a tool like Hudu, a documentation tool, and a tool like HelpGhost, a AI tool, is specifically valuable to MSP rather than just having these as separate tools within the tech stack?
Yeah, real fast. I actually shared that article in the chat. So anybody that wants to see it, there's a bunch of other statistics and stats on that. So feel free to open up that link. Yeah, I think, well, one is building off of the other, right? Like it's anybody that understands, I'll just speak to the AI side of it for right now. And Andrew, obviously, is our technical co-founder, so he can speak to even more depth in this I can. And Andrew, I'll probably pass this off to you to get your opinion on this after this. But
Sure.
I, good information in, good information out. Bad information in, bad information out. It's not complicated when it comes to AI. And so like now when you talk about, well, why, okay, we have great documentation, shouldn't that be enough? Absolutely. Historically it would have been and is, right? But today, when you're trying to become more proactive, once again, whatever that means to you, proactively solving problems before they become an issue, primarily is what we mean by that. Well, it's never been more possible to automate the reactive than it is today. And one of the things I think has become increasingly obvious as we continue our conversations with our partners and MSPs at large is you can't be proactive when you're inundated with the reactive. You have to automate the reactive or at least a portion of it to free time up to be that proactive, right? Now in the age of AI and automation, and look, and they're not all built equal either, by the way. There are some that are better than others, right? There's a lot of vaporware out there. There's a lot of, shiny new toys and things that could be distracting. We understand that, but at the end of the day, this is a new age for us that we're kind of on the precipice of, right? And long story short is you now have more capability to automate a portion of that reactive to be more proactive based off of the foundation, which is good sound practices, good sound operations, and solid documentation like through tools through Hudu, right? To build off of that to get to that less firefighting, to get to that more proactive, right? So, Andrew, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that from more from a technical perspective.
Yeah, so one thing that's been really interesting to me as I've gotten to know the MSP industry a lot better is there are a ton of parallels between how like an IT MSP office works and like a software engineering team. And one of those is whether it's a tech or a software engineer, no one wants to write documentation. And if you do write documentation, no one wants to look for it. And so those are like two big problems. And then it's the same thing. Tribal knowledge is a huge killer of productivity and knowledge loss. And there's another documentation tool that I use quite a bit in my career. And if you're familiar with like read only access and write only access of files, I always joked that it was a write only knowledge base because people would write to it and no one would ever read it because it was so hard to find anything in it. And so I think that's one thing that's really great that Hudu and HelpGhost work really well together is Hudu is a great tool for writing to the knowledge base, and HelpGhost not only helps surface that knowledge, but like brings it right to where you're working. So like whether in your PSA or it's talking to a customer, like it surfaces knowledge really well, and so it makes that read only part really easy. And then pairing it with Scholar helps to write data back in very easily too. So it streamlines both of those huge problems that techs don't want to write to the knowledge base, and they don't want to spend time. If they spend 20 minutes looking through their knowledge base searching for a little nugget of information, then they didn't really save much time. And so if we can streamline both those, which I think we do pretty well, it's a game changer for MSPs.
and they're real fast. You know, there's something else to that too. Like Kaseya did a study. I can't remember when they actually did it, but they found that 20% of their text time was wasted searching for information, right? When we started HelpGhost, we actually went and sat physically with MSPs, right? We went in the office, we sat with the technicians, right? Because Android came out from outside the channel, and we didn't want to come in with any preconceived notions or ideas of what we knew better. We wanted to sit with the people that were living it every day and doing the job actually, and learn from that and observe, right? And it was pretty obvious that just the sheer amount of time of searching through documentation, trying to find that, hence the study that through Kaseya, that 20%. Well, I mean, that's 20% per technician. That compounds over days, weeks, months, and years, right? And so there's another facet of the marriage between AI automation and documentation to what Andrew's talking about is not only decreasing that wasted time, but that those gains themselves also compound over time. Just as the bad compounds over time, so does the benefits if done properly.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And Andrew, I know you obviously just kind of talked about a little bit about Scholar and some other things that the Help Ghost side of things will do for you based off of that good documentation that you would already have in Hudu. If you want to quickly show off kind of what that looks like, if you have the ability to do so, I think that that would be a good time to do this now.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, I might have come prepared for this moment. So yeah, we have here in Hudu in our Help Ghost Hudu instance. This is a speaking of AI, this is an AI generated KB article. So not a lot of helpful information normally, but what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that this is a fictional product. So it's not just like pulling answers off the web. And so whatever you have in your KBs, you have that stuff written. So that's all handled in Hudu. You guys are familiar with that. In Help Ghost Scholar, this is where we pull everything into Help Ghost and make it organized and manageable. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to find that same article. So there's that WizBuzz article. And I want it available to everyone so we can test it in our customer facing AI. And then it's going to go ahead and add that article. And there it is. So there's our WizBuzz article. It created Scholar entries, which I don't have to go into what all that means. You can book a demo with Jamie if you want to know all the nuts and bolts, I guess. So this is now pulled into the HelpGhost system. And so this is our customer facing AI. And we'll just start a little test chat here. Let's go back to this. I guess we can ask a question. What's something random in here? What's the pairing process? Hey, I need to pair. Uh, so I need to, what does it say? Open the app, tap to add new device. So let's see if it does that right. Okay, I got a new WizBuzz and I don't know how to pair it. So again, this is a customer chatting with the AI. We also have Hero, which would be like the tech focused one. So it'd be a little bit different kind of
Yeah,
context
what
there,
you're
but
looking at now is the as our customer facing AI. We have a studio, which is a sandbox environment that MSPs, their technicians, their people can test before deploying it to customer facing for clarification.
yep. Uh, Make sure it's plugged in, grab your phone, download the WizBuzz app, open up, click add new device. Yep, that all looks like that's straight from Hudu. So there you go. I mean, a really, really simple example. We could ask it more questions if we want, but I think you get the gist that that took, what, a total of 30 seconds, 2 minutes tops to pull in that data and then surface it.
Very cool. Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate seeing a little bit of that and just how quickly you can kind of find that information from that knowledge base article there. Um, so I think that also kind of ties in, and I know we talked about it earlier, but the idea of I think it's interesting talking about something like AI, right? And I think that based off of the conversations that I've had with numerous people in the industry, there I feel like there's probably also a lot of like misconceptions about AI out there as well, about exactly what it's doing for you. And I think some MSPs and people that I've talked to are also kind of under the impression of that AI will fix all of the problems and fix everything and fix my documentation and all of that. Jamie, what's your take on that side of things?
Yeah, I think that's um yeah, that's a narrative that needs to be corrected. Look, AI and automation can fix a lot of things. Like I said in the beginning, it's more of an amplifier than it is a miracle than a magical bullet, right? By any means. And the way that we look at it is as an accelerant. It takes whatever you're doing and it does it faster and at scale, right? If your processes are broken, if your documentation is incomplete or inconsistent, AI just gives you broken results faster, and you end up automating chaos, not sound processes, right? And so, first you got to make sure number one is your house in order, and what I really mean by that is not having a knowledge base somewhere or having it semi-complete, but does your team actually use it? Is it current? Can someone who's never seen a client environment walk in and know what to do? If the answer is no, then AI probably isn't going to help you as much as you would like for it to. I think it will help quite a bit. I think it will, be able to do more than you would anticipate. But is it going to do as much as you would, uh, as much as it should in a process that is sound and documented? No, the answer is simple. It's just not going to do that. And then secondly, like what is the actual problem that you're trying to solve? Because we see a lot of MSPs deploying AI throughout the channel, obviously, and obviously there's a huge amount of conversations about deployment, exploration. There's another stat. I'm a big stat guy, and 73, I think this was GTIA that put this out. 73% of MSPs were exploring or actively looking at deploying AI within the next 2 to 3 years, right? And I think there's also a lot of like fear of being left behind or missing the boat, but that's not a strategy. And, like the question is, are you trying to reduce ticket volume? Are you trying to improve response time? Or are you trying to manage more endpoints without increasing your headcount and upskilling your team and not replacing people, but replacing a hire, right? Like you have to get specific about what your goals are, right? And at the end of the day, before you deploy I really believe that you have to answer those questions to know, is AI going to fix anything rather than everything, right? Yeah. So just some thoughts there.
Yeah, I had a thought on that too. Is that I think first and foremost, the MSP industry is a service industry, and so you can never ever replace the people because that's what people are buying MSPs and signing up for in the first place
Yep.
is for those people interactions, and AI will never replace that. And we feel very strongly about that at HelpGhost as well, that we never want to replace that or interfere with that. And then I also think like there's a lot of things that an AI will never do. I don't know, maybe Tesla's Optimus robot will start doing things someday, but for the next decade, I'm guessing, you're still going to need a person to go and, unplug something and set up a new server or put a new desktop in place, whatever. Like those physical things you also will never replace. And then the last thought is, I could spend probably way too much time talking about the technology behind AI and how impressive and not impressive it is at the same time, because at the end of the day, all it is a next word predictor. And so based on the existing formulas and data that exist, it mathematically predicts the next word it should say. And so coming up with novel solutions to a new problem that it's never seen before or has never occurred in the world before, is not documented anywhere, is really going to be hit and miss if an AI can actually solve that problem. That's where you still need intelligent text and good people to solve those problems and to help hold its hand. Like I just think that that's something that will never, in my opinion, will never go away. I think the AI hype is a little too strong, thinking that it will replace many of the industries that they're saying it'll replace. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Andrew. I think I run into that too, even like, and I've, even just in my own Hudu environment and in my own, documentation, kind of playing around with things and using AI tools to search for things that maybe I don't have documented, and then it tells me something that is not the way that I want to do it or need to do it. And so again, I think that it really ties everything together to say, okay, I'm an MSP. I need to solve this problem. Okay, the first thing is, do I have it documented how I can solve that problem and how our team expects that problem to be solved? Okay, good. I do. All right, now let's use, AI, a tool like HelpGhost to basically get that in front of my face quicker to where I can go solve that problem in seconds. And that's really kind of the bottom line of I guess what I've taken away from this conversation and working with you guys. So definitely appreciate that. I do want to give time here. I know we had this scheduled for 45 minutes. Definitely appreciate that conversation. Want to make sure if anybody has any questions, again, please feel free to ask those in the Q&A in the chat. Whether it's a documentation related question, a Hudu related question, a AI related question, a HelpGhost related question. Obviously, we're here to answer any and all of those today. Taking the tools out of it, adding them in specifically, whatever's needed on our end, we're happy to do. Um, I guess in the meantime, just in case we do have any questions come in, Jamie, Andrew, any other thoughts on today's webinar? Anything else that you wanted to address or talk about today?
Yeah, I think there's one more thing for me, and obviously we can wait for some questions that come in. I was thinking about this in preparation for this, and I think it really matters that we understand there's a difference between data and knowledge. Like most MSPs have tons of data. They've got tickets and emails, chat logs, whatever. But data without context oftentimes just becomes noise and oftentimes gets ignored, right? And documentation is how you turn data into knowledge, right? And so I think the real value isn't just, oh, AI can read my docs. It's what we call the intelligence loop, right? And that's solve, learn, document, improve. That's how you go from reactive to proactive. That's how you capture institutional knowledge instead of instead of losing it every time someone does leave. And it's clear that Andrew and I are a little bit biased. We literally built HelpGhost and the integration into Hudu to do this. But the principle applies whether you're using our tools or someone else's or even building your own, right? And so I just really wanted to make that distinction and have that call out before we ended today. So,
Yeah. Definitely agree and see that every day when I'm talking to people. And really, it goes back to that point of no matter what MS type of MSP you are, no matter how many employees you have, turnover is something that is always going to happen. And so when your top tech leaves in months, days, years, decades, whatever that may be, you want to be able to set the next best tech up for success. And that's really where documentation comes into it. And again, what better way to set them up for success than having that documentation laid out and then also having it face to face with them whenever they need to solve those problems when a ticket comes in.
yeah, absolutely.
This is a good one for you, probably Jamie or Andrew. Can help Ghost pull not only from my Hoodoo knowledge base, but other sources too.
Yes. I don't know if there's much else to say, but the answer is yes, definitely. We have some people that are doing that right now. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
we have one customer in particular who's migrating from one knowledge base to the other, and so it's really helped in that migration process.
And what we'll go ahead and do here too is in the chat, I'll go ahead and put my calendar in and Jamie, Andrew, if you want to put in, however somebody can book a demo with Help Ghost here as well. And that way, if anybody does have, obviously we wanted to make this as much conversational as possible and really just
Yeah.
talk about really how you can use documentation system as well as a AI system to really just streamline these processes. But obviously, if you're curious about Hudu itself, if you're curious about Help Ghost and want to book a demo with either of our teams, we'll have those links in the chat there. So feel free to do so. Even if you're a Hudu customer, a Help Ghost customer, and you have additional questions based off of today, feel free to book time with either of our teams at any time. Also, Jamie, I did see that you sent that link to just the hosts earlier as well if you want to send it to everyone in the
Oh,
chat.
yeah, I will. Give me 1 second. I'll definitely do that.
Yeah,
Good
no
catch
worries.
there. Yeah,
So
that's
yeah, I'll
it.
have Jamie will
There
go
we
ahead
go.
and link over the Help Ghost information there, as well as a calendar for booking a demo on their side. Hopefully everybody enjoyed today's webinar and hopefully got some value out of it. I know I sure did. And it was great working with both you, Andrew and Jamie. And
Thanks, man.
definitely go recommend going and checking out Help Ghost if you're interested in kind of what we talked about today.
Yeah, we appreciate your time, Daniel and Hudu, and everyone that attended. Super good to have everybody. You can go to helpghost.io to book a demo with us, or also we do 14 free day trials as well. We like to be really easy people to work with. So I'm sorry that I didn't bring a polished pitch deck today. If anybody missed the slideshow, which I doubt anybody did, but I like having the conversations like this, Daniel. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully
Yeah.
everybody got some good information. We appreciate everybody. Thank y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
agree. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Have a great rest of your day.
See ya.
Bye.
Take care.